You ever wonder why one article just shoots to the top of Google while another one that seems just as good gets totally buried? Well, we're going to crack that code today. We're going to figure out how Google really decides what you see. And believe it or not, it all boils down to one simple but super powerful idea.
I mean, it's the question on every content creator's mind, right? You type something into that little search bar and boom, instantly, a whole list of results pops up. But how does Google pick the winner? Who gets that coveted #1 spot? Is it really some crazy, complex, secret algorithm locked away in a vault somewhere?
Well, it turns out it's actually less of a secret formula and a lot more like a guiding philosophy. And it all comes down to just 4 simple but incredibly powerful words that Google uses to tell the difference between content that's genuinely helpful and, well, all the other stuff.
Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to unpack the acronym that really sits at the heart of Google's entire approach to quality. And trust me, this is a concept that has completely changed the game for everyone creating content online. And here it is, EEAT. That stands for Experience, Expertise, Authoritativeness, and Trustworthiness. Think of these as the 4 main pillars that Google's human quality raters, yeah, real people, use to figure out if a piece of content is actually valuable to you, the person doing the searching.
And you know, this isn't some brand new trend. The whole idea actually started way back in 2014, but back then it was just EAT. Then, in 2018, this thing called the Medic update happened, and suddenly it became a huge deal. Fast forward to 2022, and Google adds that extra E right at the beginning for experience. The fact that it's always evolving just shows you how seriously Google takes this whole framework.
All right, so we've got the letters down, EEAT. But what do they really mean when you're creating stuff? Let's break down each part of this acronym one by one.
So first up is that new E they added, experience. This is pretty simple, really. It's all about showing that you've actually, been there and done that. Writing a review of a new bike? Well, Google wants to know, have you actually ridden the thing? It's all about that authentic, first-hand knowledge.
You know, Google puts it really simply in its own guidelines. I mean, it's just common sense when you think about it, right? You want to get advice from somebody who has real-world experience. And guess what? So does Google.
Okay, next up is the second E, and that's for expertise. This goes a step beyond just personal experience. This is about having a really high level of skill or, formal knowledge in a field. Think about it this way. If you need legal advice about buying a house, you're not going to ask a baker for help, right? No, you're going to find a real estate lawyer. That is expertise.
All right, on to the A for authoritativeness. This one is all about your reputation. And it's not just about what you say about how great you are. It's about what other experts in your field are saying about you. So when other big authoritative sites link to your content, it's basically like they're giving you a vote of confidence. That's a huge signal to Google that you're a go-to source.
And finally, we have T for trustworthiness. And honestly, this is the foundation that holds the whole thing up. Is your content accurate? Is it up to date? Is your website secure, with the little lock icon, the HTTPS? Is it super clear who's behind the site and how someone could get in touch? When it comes to Google, trust is absolutely non-negotiable.
Okay, so we get what EEAT is now. But why does it matter so much? Why does Google care this much about this specific framework?
Now, this next part is really, really important to understand. EEAT isn't some number or score that an algorithm just spits out. Instead, Google has thousands of actual human beings, they're called quality raters, who use this framework to check out the search results. And the feedback they provide helps Google tweak its algorithms to reward the good stuff. So while it's not a direct ranking factor, you better believe it has a huge influence on what ends up at the top.
And listen, the payoff for getting this right is massive. When you really focus on EEAT, you're not just trying to game an algorithm. You're actually making content that your audience will love and find valuable. And that, naturally, leads to all the good stuff. Higher rankings, people sticking around longer, more shares, and a much better shot at grabbing one of those featured snippets right at the very top of the page.
So, EEAT is important across the board for sure, but there's a special category of content where the standards are, exceptionally high. And there's a really good reason for it.
Google calls this stuff your money or your life, or YMYL for short. And it's exactly what it sounds like. We're talking about topics where bad information could have serious, real-world consequences. We're talking about stuff that can affect a person's health, their financial situation, or even their safety. And this covers a lot more ground than you might think at first. Of course, we're talking about medical advice sites like WebMD or financial guides like NerdWallet. But it also includes legal information and even e-commerce sites like Amazon, where you're about to spend your money. For any of these, the stakes are just higher.
So, for these YMYL topics, Google is incredibly strict. A lack of clear EEAT isn't just a minor problem, it's a huge red flag. In fact, Google basically sees it as the defining trait of a low-quality site, simply because the potential for someone to get hurt is so high.
Okay, so this all makes sense in theory, but how do you actually put it into action? Let's wrap this up with some practical, concrete steps you can take.
Here are 3 simple but really powerful best practices. First off, create a detailed About page. Let people know who you are. This is a direct signal of your experience and expertise. Second, work with other experts. Do guest posts, collaborate on research. That builds your authority like crazy. And third, keep your content fresh and accurate. Seriously, nothing kills trustworthiness faster than old, outdated info.
And remember, this isn't some quick fix. As SEO expert Neil Patel points out, building up your EEAT really is a long-term strategy. But the good news? The reward is totally worth it. Once you establish that high level of trust and authority, you create this lasting advantage that's really, really hard for anyone else to knock down.
So, let's leave you with a question to chew on. Whether you're the one creating the content or you're just the one searching for answers online, take a second to think about the EEAT behind it. In a world that is just flooded with information, asking that simple question, is this actually helpful, credible, and trustworthy? Well, it's never been more important.